So this is our pre-recorded segment that we're doing with our friend Kendra Wesson, who is a member of the Oklahoma State School Board. And we just wanted to have Kendra on because as any of you who have watched us for any period of time know that we've been very interested in school boards. I mean, way back from like 2010 or 2009, we knew that the key to a good school was who was on the school board. So we got to know Kendra when she was running for, it was your house district, right?
Yes, but I think I started talking to you before that. I was part of House Bill 1775 and some other things, and I was just learning different education pieces. And I would come to Jenny as the been there, done that person, and ask her questions and try to figure out what was going on.
Well, and you had a table with your school boards for kids at our
that's right,
conference that we did.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been when I met you in person.
Yes, I think so. I was a baby politician then.
Yes, that was
well,
great.
That's a good question, though, to kind of start out off with. I mean, obviously, you were interested in school boards for quite some time because you did start with school boards for kids. How did you first? Let's start with the first question. What made you interested in school boards in the first place?
Well, I back in 2020 here in Norman, our police were defunded. And so I became a part of a movement to try to figure out what was happening, change over some council members. Our mayor needed to be changed. And then I started to see so many things. And I'd always been a big piece of education with all, we have 8 kids that have gone through school, and I did a lot of early childhood education things. I had one of the first 3-star daycare centers back in the early 2000s when DHS rolled out that three-star program. And so as I started to dig into why the police were defunded, that led me back to OU, which led me back to school and education and what our kids were being taught. And then I started to realize part of our issue was school boards and who was on those boards and what kind of agendas they may have. And Reed Downey started school boards for kids, and he said, hey, I really like what you did with Unite Norman and your organization skills and what you orchestrated there. So could you come and help me? So I started helping them. And then, of course, Reed's wonderful, and I helped more. And then he was like, you've done so much work. Will you be a co-director with me? And I was like, sure, I can do that. And then it just, step after step, everything just led me to where I am today. It's a pretty cool path and a pretty cool story.
It is, but I think the other thing that's really interesting to me is you kind of got red pilled.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. Yeah. I mean, and it's not even a political thing. I mean, a red pilling just means, you wake up and you become your eyes open to what all is going on around you. And there is a bunch of stuff going around, and one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing, leads to another thing. And pretty soon, I mean, it's wild what you figure out.
Well, I think we think as one person. Sometimes we think I can't make a difference, or what can I do? So I'm just going to keep raising my kids, working, being the best human being I can be. And then one day you realize, wow, one person can make a difference. And it's not a big grand thing. It's the same thing as the path to success. It's consistent, small steps, staying true to your mission, being a good person on top of that. And, we can make change. And I think if people knew how much their one vote counted, how much you really do matter in the big picture of all of this political circus.
Right. And right now, the political is more, rather than people looking at it as political battles, it's really good versus evil. We are right there, and we need good people stepping up and speaking out fearlessly. I mean, the Bible says, do not fear 365 times. So we need to not be afraid.
So a couple of things. Did you say, how many kids have you put through school?
So 8. My first son started school in 1997 as a kindergartner. Yeah.
Holy cow.
And
8.
it's different. Education has changed a lot over that time period. So our youngest is 7. All 3 of our youngest girls are at a private school now. I bless you guys that are homeschoolers. Someone in our house would not survive. So there's a special calling for you.
Well, I don't know. We have one of those at our house too. So
I love them all.
yeah. So 8 kids have gone through the system. That's just amazing. So that's a kind of a piece to the puzzle and the red pill part, because you have been there for a long time. You have been able to see how much things have changed then. So that had to have factored into your decision to be more active too. Oh, and as you're answering that question, I might point out, because I was so thrilled with what you just said about every person makes a difference, right? And I know a lot of people say things like, well, I have a full-time job. I can't really do anything because I have this or that or the other thing, but I'm pretty sure you have a full-time job too. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I'm a consultant. I have an accounting firm here in Norman. So I go around to businesses in many different industries. Currently, I'm working consulting for a church. I have a couple of doctors, nursing home. So I love that piece because I get to do my peopling. I'm not a sit in the corner accountant and do spreadsheets. So, and it's also serving. People are so excited when I help them understand what's happening in their business, where they need to go. So that gives me that feeling of accomplishment in serving my fellow man, and then I get paid for it to boot it all off. So it's great.
But the point of the matter is with a full-time job, you've raised 8 kids, and now you're jumping in. You've been with school boards for kids. Now you're a state school board member.
Yes.
I mean, Kendra, that's a pretty big deal. How did that come up?
Well, I ran for office last fall for House District 46, and I was not successful against the incumbent. We were close, but did not. And during my time running, there were a lot of events I was out with Ryan Walters, and I became close with Ryan, and we had a lot of the same views. And then Governor Stitt graduated from Norman, and I actually attend the church where his father used to preach at. And so came across him at different events and things. And when I was asked to do this, the wording was, you ran a great campaign. You were able to keep your cool and maintain your class while arrows were being thrown at you. And we think you would just be perfect on the school board because you know how to handle those arrows. So that was it. But I saw Governor Stitt Friday night, and I said, at my confirmation hearing, they're going to ask me why I think you appointed me. And I said, Governor, I don't want to lie. So can you give me a good answer? And he said, you know what? I was looking for people that were strong people and had a heart for Oklahoma and education, and we're going to look out and do what's best for our kids and would work hard. And he goes, it was a no-brainer with you. And I just thought that was the sweetest thing, that he said to me.
Yeah, but I got to say, I would have to second that. And there are several things I don't agree with our governor on, but I would certainly agree with that, because I think one of the things that I noticed about you the most immediately is you're just a dynamo, man. I mean, you're smart, you're funny, you're self-possessed. You don't let people get you down when they say negative stuff. And you ran a wonderful campaign against, I would have to call him a socialist at minimum.
Yes, I think when you're co-chair of Bernie Sanders' campaign in Oklahoma, I think you could be classified as
self-avowed socialist even.
Yeah. So
I mean,
you just did. I mean, you really did great, and I think that all of us, that know you are excited that you're on this board, because when people get angry and, they can't talk to one another, and there's a lot of just, it just doesn't help. And I mean, for Pete's sakes, we can all be nice. You don't have to agree, but you can be nice. I mean, there's no law that says just because you don't agree, you know, have to go into fisticuffs. I mean, so I really love that about you, Kendra, and I think is going to make you a phenomenal seat on that board.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you guys a story. The first time I saw Jenny speak was at Holly's. It was Holly's Flatiron Steakhouse and more. It's now Toby Keith's Bar and Grill. And Jenny got up and she said, you know, you don't have to put the mask on. She said, you can walk in, and she goes, now, you don't need to be rude and you don't need to be ugly, but you can say, thank you, I don't need that, and smile and nod and be sincere, but you don't have to wear the mask, but you don't have to be a jerk either. And so that's what I remember about the first time I saw you speak, Jenny, and I was like, wait a second, there is something to that. We don't have to comply, and we don't have to be ugly when we're not complying. This is amazing. So you have great insight too, I think.
Well, that's very sweet, but I mean, it is true. And I think part of the reason why Christians fall down a lot are they don't understand how to stand up for themselves, how to stand up for their beliefs without being ugly. And they're so afraid they're going to be ugly that they just cave, you know? And I think we can't. You can say no. You don't have to go, no.
You're right. And it is in the delivery, and it's in your, you know, I've had to work on my face a lot the last few years because I'm pretty blunt. Jenny knows I've called and asked her questions like, what is this? But I'm very blunt, but my face also reveals whatever I'm feeling. So I've had to work on that and frame that. It's not being disingenuous, and it's not being, because I felt like a liar when I wasn't just coming across exactly how I wanted to come across. And I needed to massage that a little bit and be kind. And so it would make me feel like a liar or disingenuous. But I've learned how to look at it from the viewpoint of, I respect myself, so I'm going to respect you and treat you the way I would want you to treat me. And that's helped me a lot in that arena, because also realizing too, I'll just say this bluntly, I'm not that important. That person is not mad at me. I don't make that big of a difference to that person. That person's mad at the situation. That person's mad at what's happening around them that they can't control, that maybe it's not all about me. So I shouldn't take offense to it because it has nothing to do with me. I had someone really come at me about Ryan Walters. You know, they hit the table in front of me and was like, he's this, he's that. And I could have taken that personal, have been sad and heartbroken, but I look at him and I say, okay, so you're upset with Ryan Walters, and I just happen to be here in front of you at that moment. So cool. You're upset with him. I'm fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Honestly, Kendra, that's awesome, because it's tough when somebody's yelling, not to make them yelling at you. So that's amazing. So I want to ask you, what do you think is I mean, if you had to say if you had one thing that you wanted to say about being an Oklahoma State school board member, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
In this climate and under this administration, the first thing that I love about it is being a part of change for Oklahoma in a positive way for our kids.
Good. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. When you say change, because there are two vastly different ideas about what education should be anymore. And certainly, you know, and it's all over the country. It's not just here in Oklahoma. What do you mean about change? Can you describe that a little bit more?
Well, first of all, Jenny, I disagree with you. I think there's many, many, many more than two ideas of what education should look like and what it means to different people. For me, change would be being able to be a part of any process that I see as beneficial. Change comes by not getting caught in the weeds, but staying above the fray and the noise and being able to singularly look at kids and say, how can I do what's best for you with this decision I'm being asked to make in front of me right now? So, you know, our change is kind of limited on the school board. We don't do the day-to-day of the Board of Education. We don't go into schools and kick out teachers or principals or superintendents. But what we do is create policy that is in line with the legislature. We all know the legislature gives us the laws. We figure out how to implement them, curriculum standards, those things, making sure that we've got things in there that are going to benefit every child to the best of our ability, keep them safe. And so I think that it just comes in so many realms, from can we do better with state testing? Can we do that better? How could we do that better? Jenny, we visited about that, before. There's a lot of things I see that are faulty that have just become the best practice because we haven't been able to come up with something better. Teachers can be involved in that. And, Ryan's really been good about involving teachers in those conversations. Who better than the people that are actually in the classroom, actually experiencing what's happening. And then students need to be a part of that conversation, and parents. So there's lots of conversations all the time. And I think where we make our mistakes is when we start looking in the rearview mirror and focusing on the past and the mistakes of the past. I mean, we have to glance at them to see how to move forward and why they didn't work, but that's it. We need to be looking forward and innovating and thinking outside the box. And both sides, this is a totally nonpartisan issue. Both sides get stuck in what they know and what they feel is right and don't want to move away from that. And it's hard for me too, as a very conservative person. I know what works. So I'll do that the same way. If I find a t-shirt that fits right, I want it in every color because I know it works, right? And so we challenge each other and challenge ourselves to think outside the box. And I want to listen to Jenny White and Julia, and I want to listen to also people who are on the other side and come up with those opinions. For my confirmation hearing, I talked to probably 6 different people, and they all viewed this position and the importance of it through a different lens when they told me to answer questions. So, for instance, one person I talked to really wanted to think about protecting the school board and the state. And one person I talked to maybe was thinking about protecting Ryan Walters. And one person I talked to was looking at it through the lens of teachers and being sure they're included in the drudgery of day-to-day educational issues. So when I talked to all of those people, I was able to come up with something that I knew was my opinion and worked for me with all of those lenses. And people don't do that. They talk to who they know is going to agree with them or who they know isn't going to be a problem. But, I want the people to call me that disagree with me. And that's backfired on me. I had a guy that I thought was maybe we were able to disagree amicably last week. And I told him Jesus loved him and he lost his mind. So that wasn't fun. But again, that's between him and Jesus. I just wanted to know Jesus loved him, but that was the worst thing I could have said to the man. So it's just.
Well, as you've been talking, the thing that jumped out of me the most is that this is a nonpartisan issue. I mean, as I've been in the classroom. I've been, a teacher for many, many years. It is a school board should be a nonpartisan entity, period. They shouldn't be worried about anything other than, can Joey read and can Jill do her math? That is it. It shouldn't be anything else. But I think what I meant in terms of the black or white or sides issue was, you mentioned just a little bit ago about how you think about the child and how you want the child to do well and what's best for the child. But, literally, Kendra, there are people out there who think it's best for children to have sex change operations before they're 18. So we have a segment of the population that literally isn't thinking
rationally
as to what would be the best interest of the child, and then we'll tell you but that's the best interest for the child. It has to be really hard in this climate to be able to do what you just talked about, view it through all the lenses.
Well, you're right. And what I view, I was trying to find a paper I had, but I'll try to do it from memory. So you're right. I'm biased. And what I view as the best interest of a child is an understanding that good grades and performance and consistency, a child who can handle hard things thrown at them, that's what I view as being good for the child. Now that being a parent, I've had some parents say, we try not to say no. That's not me. That's not my discipline is good. And as a matter of fact, a company I'm consulting for, we have a manager who is very laid back and relaxed, and that's great. We're all adults. We can manage ourselves. But what I started seeing was 2 employees we're having issues with are employees who like structure. And when they don't have good structure and they don't have good boundaries and foundation and rules, they get fearful. And when they get fearful, they act out, and they act out with grumpiness, frustration. And so I was talking to him about that. And I said, I love how you're such a good manager and you let everyone be themselves and own their work and do their jobs. But we also have to be mindful that there are employees that exist that need that structure, and they feel out of control. So it's kind of like being on a bicycle. You're holding the handlebars. You're in control. You're safe. You can make it to the end of that hill versus going down the hill with your hands up, feet off the pedals, and you're just like this all over the place, right? You're totally out of control. You don't know what's going to happen. That's terrifying. And he was like, I love that, Kendra. I never thought about it that way. And I said, I learned that when the kids were little. There again, there's balance too. You can be too strict, you can be too structured and cause things to go the other way. So the balancing act, keeping perspective is good. But I do know with mine, I couldn't have survived all of them without structure. We had certain rules. And then there were times that we were silly or crazy. But for the most part, they know what's expected. When they're 16, they go to work. Whether it's not a money issue, you're training to be an adult. It's not, you're going to enjoy the last couple of years of high school and be free and not have any responsibility. You're going to start having responsibility now. I'm training you how to be an adult. You're a young adult. You're going to learn how to manage money, go to work, show up. When you miss work, think about the people that you're affecting when you're not there and how much harder they have to work. And that's what we've done with our kids. And our kids all 5 of them are grown, and they're all doing well. I mean, there's something to it that maybe we did right by chance, but it's the same way with the kids of Oklahoma. I want to see a structured environment that focuses on the things they need to be successful as adults. And attendance and being able to handle being told no are important life skills when you get a job, because your employer is not going to come to you and say, hey, I understand your parents were real relaxed, so we're going to be easy on you here, Joe. Don't worry about being here on time because, everyone else is on time. Why do we need you to be? That's not how it works. So what are we doing? And so that's how I feel.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because I was reminded of a story while you were talking about the fact that there was a brand new elementary school that was built, and the teachers would take the little kids out, but they had not had a chance to build a fence around the playground. So the kids would go out and they were like all excited, but they would stay in this one. It was a huge, play area, but they would stay kind of right by the door by the teachers, and, kind of a small area. And this would happen week after week. And finally in the teacher's lounge, one of the teachers was like, what is going on? Why is this happening? And there was, they figured out that when the fence came in, and they came out and put the fence out, and as soon as the fence was up, they let the kids out and they started running to the ends of the fence, and well, why is that? Well, when you don't have guidelines, when you don't have boundaries, and you're a small little person like that, the world seems huge. And even when you're 16, you're not small anymore, but you don't know what a 40-year-old knows, and the world is very large. And it frustrates me to no end when I'm unsuccessful at imposing boundaries as a parent, and when other people don't want to impose boundaries, because boundaries aren't bad. They're not to fence you in. They're to give you the safety net to be able to experience all that you can experience out on that big, wide playground. So I think, you just hit the nail, I think, perfectly right on the head with that. Oh, I'm sorry, Jules, go.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk to Kendra about, I know Ryan Walters has put on the Oklahoma State Department of Ed website a connection for parents that need help, or And I've had some teachers that have called me and I've said, go to the website, go to the Department of Ed website. There's a place you can actually be heard. And I just wonder if y'all are getting lots of feedback with that, or if it's kind of slow getting up and going, or if you even know as a school board member if y'all are participating in any of that.
There are so many things flooding in, and I think teachers really feel heard by Ryan. So yes, everyone's reaching out. I've had tons of emails as well. I do have something I can share with you, that if you'll get me those teachers' email addresses, they will be doing emails directly to teachers themselves about what is going on. Okay. Ryan is really big about getting teachers involved and making sure they know the day-to-day of what's happening. So they've created a list at the State Department where they're going to email those teachers directly, not principals, not administrators of the schools, but the teachers. And so I think that's really neat. Yeah. So we can utilize that. There's also a complaint button on there where you can make complaints. And I know that thing has been off the charts lately. So they're getting through everything as quickly as they can. And we expected it to take off, but not like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, the teachers that I've talked to actually would be on their team. I mean, it's their concern is that the school is not protecting the kids from, some of the crazy stuff going on, and even inviting things into the schools that should not be there. And they can't go to their principal, they can't go to their superintendent and find relief. And those are the kinds of concerns. Those teachers are literally afraid for their jobs if they were to go to their, who they should normally be able to go to, because they're just letting, if it's okay with you to let a teacher have a kitty litter in her room, that's not your person you want to talk to, and things like that. But there was, but I just, so there's, and I'm hoping that y'all can anonymously use these teacher issues, the ones that I'm hearing from, to maybe help y'all make the changes that need to be made, because that's a lot of the teachers are just are frozen. They don't know what to do.
I'll get you an update on that too. But from what I understand, they hit the ground running, and there were so many things left over from the prior administration that hadn't been taken care of and need to be ironed out. They're working on that backlog of items. But yes, that's important. And we want our teachers. Someone told me this morning they had talked to, there's been a few bad incidences that have happened at more schools where some young people have lost their lives recently. There was a car wreck and some other things that have happened. And she said, I went in to talk to my son's teacher about, it was his friend that was in the car wreck, and I was letting her know what was going on. And she said, for the first time, that teacher looked at me and said, let's pray about that real quick. And she goes, so in that classroom, and she started crying, she was like, in that classroom, that teacher felt safe and comfortable enough to pray for me about my son. And she said, I've never had that happen. She said, I feel like teachers are feeling comfortable now and able to do those things in the classroom. So my point of that is, I hope that your teacher friends begin to feel that too, as we begin to transition to an environment where teachers don't have to feel oppressed in that way.
Right.
Yeah. That's a lovely, that's a lovely story. I love that. Yeah, it really does. I mean, so I wanted to ask you a couple of specific questions about some of the rules that you guys have passed recently, because there's been a lot of yakking about it, which make no sense to me. But, you said something earlier about when people feel backed into a corner, they get fearful. And when they get fearful, they get angry. And that's what I think a lot of what this stuff is that's going on. And, I'm just going to say it because I say it all the time. So nobody's going to be shocked about me saying it. The whole idea of school choice is nonsense to me personally, because I just feel like, look, You guys get billions, gazillions of dollars. The legislature is the one that appropriates those funds. The state school board makes rules, that the schools are to follow. There has got to be a way, instead of giving out more money, instead of the government pretending that they can empower parents, there has to be a way for the state to make schools mind. I mean, for Pete's sakes, we give the schools money. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, my parents never gave me money for doing bad stuff. I didn't just get money for, oh, you stayed out all late last night and came in drunk. Here's $500,000 for you.
Right.
I mean, and essentially that's what we've got going on with schools. We've got schools literally like Oklahoma City Public Schools, for example. I mean, what is their highest reading percentage now? 30% of kids can read. Yay, Oklahoma City Public Schools. That's awesome. Here, let's give you $500 million. So, Kendra, the last couple of rules that you guys have done, I've been very interested in because I feel like it solves this problem. So, one of the rules was, and you'll have to help me because I don't have them sitting in front of me and I just am, kind of, going through them. But the one I'm talking about is where you can literally take a school's accreditation for certain reasons. So can you expound on that just a little bit and maybe, even dovetail into what I said a little bit, if that works?
That works. And I don't want to take too much time if I can't pull it up quickly. So I think you were talking about, because we passed two that were big, a big deal.
Yep.
So this is the final media on rules on pornography. So we define library, what happens there, non-compliance.
That was a great meeting, by the way.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorites. So it was kind of well, we'll talk about the other rule in a second because hopefully I remember my train of thought. Getting older, I forget these things. So if we find a willful non-compliance and there are books that are deemed pornographic in your school, we'll alter the accreditation status of the school. Now, I know there was some conversation that day about, so you find one porn book because the teacher's, a bad actor and brings it in and you guys are going to shut down my school. No, that's not what it says at all. There's different levels of accreditation. So we can do a warning, or we can do an accreditation with probation. And, there's this funny thing about rules and laws lately. You can pass them, you can put them into play, but if there isn't accountability at the end of the day, they just don't work, right? Like, for instance, the midnight law. We are sticklers in Norman, Oklahoma. All kids under 18 have to be home at midnight. So, our son that's 24, our daughter that's 21 now, they had a hard time with that because all their friends could stay out till 2. Their curfew was, my response was, the law's midnight. You guys can be here after midnight. Your friends can come over. Don't care. The law is midnight and we are law followers. Now, there's even people watching this right now who are like, wow, she's way out there. She's strict. But if you think that, I challenge you, which law is it okay to break? Is it okay for your child to murder someone? Is it okay for your child to go down the road, and hit someone at a stop sign because they didn't stop? Which law is okay to break? So for me, I wanted my kids to always have, whether they followed them or not, isn't my challenge after they're 18. My challenge was, would they think back and say, Mom says we're not lawbreakers, and she made me follow that law. And I don't know why she did, but I'm starting to see that, rules and laws aren't made to be broken. Rules and laws are made because people can't follow the rules and the laws without them. And without accountability, they don't matter.
And, that's what we found out with Common Core. We repealed Common Core from law and then schools just kept doing it because there was
nothing in there.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It is the most maddening thing ever. And you're exactly right. And that's what's wrong with everything right now. There's just no justice anymore. So if you have laws and rules, but then you choose to just pick and choose which ones that you follow, how does that work then?
It just
Well,
doesn't.
and you hope you get the judge that agrees with you politically, or
True, that's
right
a whole
and
other
wrong.
thing.
Yeah,
That's absolutely true. So now, Kendra, what you're saying is if they decide to keep a section of young adult, and it's mainly young adult literature, that has, you know, things that would not be acceptable for at a movie for a kid developmentally to see, right? Then we're going to give you a warning on your accreditation. What happens if that? How important is accreditation to a school? Maybe we ought to back up and do that to let parents understand why this is such a great rule.
Accreditation is everything. It can affect the amount of funding you get. It can affect whether parents want to come and be in your school district. Accreditation is everything to a school. And if you get low enough and you violate enough, your school can be closed down. It's
so not a small thing.
Not a small thing.
So what was the second rule?
The second rule that was contentious that day was our parents' rights rule. So I got to meet the lady who helped put into place our Parents' Bill of Rights as House Bill 1384 went into effect about 2013. And I mean, over the past 2 years, how many times I've been like the foresight of having that law passed, you know, where our kids can't be given injections at school. Our kids can't, you know, a parent has a say in everything. So that rule tied into this big debate about if your child comes out as transgender or anything other than, we're talking about sexuality, straight, maybe the word is cis these days, I don't know. Teachers can't keep that from parents. They literally have 30 days to let the parent know, hey, your child has identified in this way. They're asking us to use pronouns, change their name. We just want to let you know. Those teachers can't keep those secrets. And that day during the hearing, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I was sitting there and you know, person after person was coming up and saying, teachers went to college for 4 years. They've got degrees. You trust them with your kids. You know, let us do our job. You're stifling our teaching process. And parents can be bad. And did you know that transgender or kids, LGBTQ kids can be kicked out of their home if parents find out who they are? And then they started citing these statistics that I felt were skewed. For instance, 79% of parents have a negative reaction when they're told that their child is gay or lesbian when they're first told. And I thought back about that statistic that was spouted, and I thought, but they're saying initially told. Well, yeah, I think that parents need a minute to absorb that in most cases. So initially they may not be excited, but that doesn't mean 3 days later or a week later they're fine. They just need a minute, right? So they skewed that statistic. And as they were talking about parents, and there was a statement of white Christian parents reject their children the most when they find out that they're LGBTQ. And I just kept thinking, you guys have just made the case for me, but not in the way you think. Because as I sit and listen to you tell me that parents don't know what's best for their children and they don't take care of their kids and they abuse them, and you're consistently saying that over and over, that's in most cases not true. And I'm not going to relinquish my parental rights to a teacher who's had my child in the classroom for 2 weeks when I've loved this child for 10 years and gave birth to them. That makes no sense to me, and it just didn't make sense. So the Parental Bill of Rights gives us some teeth to say you're not going to keep secrets with our child. And the secondary piece of that puzzle is if you've got my child in your classroom, little Sally, and I say, you can keep that secret with your teacher, little Sally, if you feel safer telling your teacher something than you do mom or my guardian or whoever. Where does that boundary? Where's that fence for that child? Is it when, teacher touches my thigh? Is that still a secret? I'm supposed to keep secrets with that teacher, right? If they want me to sit on their lap, still a secret? Okay, secret, right? How does a kid know which secret's okay and which secret isn't okay? They don't. So you're opening Pandora's box, removing their boundaries and putting them in danger. And so I feel very strongly about that rule, and I'm proud of that rule and would pass it 1,000 times. sometimes.
And the teachers that are proponents of keeping secrets from parents, I mean, somebody needs to keep an eye on them.
I
That's
hope
just
people
not
are.
okay.
I hope people are telling us, because we want to know. No secrets. We don't do that. Parents are the parents. Their rights don't end at that threshold of that school. But on the other hand, parents also need to remember, and we need to empower parents to realize their rights don't end at the threshold of that school too.
Right.
They need to be in there asking those questions. I get emails from parents, you know, this teacher is teaching the lavender scare. Is this okay? Is this Oklahoma standards? And
What is that?
I'm so glad I caught you off guard, Jenny, because you know
You did. I don't know what that is.
it was a
Do
piece
I
of the
wanna
Red
know?
Scare during the Cold War, and the Lavender Scare was when they began to fire people in federal positions that were lesbian or gay.
Okay.
They believed they could not keep national secrets, and they were untrustworthy. So it was an
Okay.
unfair bias against that community at that time, and it's called the Lavender Scare. And we had a teacher teaching about it, and the parent was like, "What? What is that?" And so I looked it up and read it, and I was like, "It's in our standards, and they're teaching it." So, you know, it's in line. There's nothing to be said about that. So,
Well, I do think that we are in kind of a crazy predicament right now because there are so many things that have to be taught. Jim Crow laws, segregation, all this stuff has to be taught. The Lavender Scare, I mean, for Pete's sakes, it actually happened. I mean, there are all these things that have to be taught. And I was so for HB 1775 that I actually, concocted the bill in Senate to Shane Jett in the first place. So that's how it ended up coming out, because I sent it to Shane was my senator and asked me if I had any bills that I wanted to run. And I said, well, here's one that we could do. You can't, because it was a thing. There were other states that were doing it. Oklahoma wasn't the only one. But there's a difference between instruction and indoctrination. They both begin with IN, but instruction is, here's what happened. Period. Here's what happened. What do you think about it? You can even, because when I was a teacher, I was a big Socratic method gal. So like everything was the question, well, what do you think about that? Well, what could have happened if he did that? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. Teach that way. But what you can't do is this. Well, that white officer who killed George Floyd, and that's why we have, blah, blah, blah today. And you literally cannot do that. That's not instruction. That is inserting my personal opinion in the middle of a conversation over something that was not even to be meant to be brought up in the classroom in the first place. I'll give you a good example. I was a part of a Facebook thread not very long ago where I think was it Sherry Connolly who was saying, is this something that's supposed to be taught in an AP U.S. history course? And there were questions in there like, what would you do if you thought you were gay? Or, there's just, yeah. And there were questions on there that, okay, wait a second. It's an AP European history class.
Is abortion okay?
That was
That's
Dana.
right.
That was Dana.
Was it Dana? And
Yeah.
What were some of the questions on there other than what would you do if you were gay? How would your parents react? What do you think about abortion? I mean, there were some other questions on there.
It never had anything to do with European history, I can tell you that.
Nothing.
But that's the bottom line. And I think that's what we have to impress upon parents. You can't just call and scream at the State Department of Education or Kendra because somebody brings up something about segregation or, whatever. It's just fine to talk about these things. That's history. You talk about them. What you can't do is make your opinion that all of the class has to have your opinion. That's not teaching. That's indoctrination.
Right.
How many
story?
Yeah. Exactly. So have you had many complaints on 1775?
Complaints which way? For it or against it?
Well, people complaining that it's happening in their classroom, that they have a teacher that's actually being indoctrinating and not instructing.
Honestly, I don't know of any pending right now. I think the strong statement made by our former board against Mustang and Tulsa said, and it's kind of funny. They came out strong, made a statement, and boom, we're not hearing as much about it. So I wonder if maybe that strong statement and following those rules didn't work. But
They put up a fence.
the complaints I do get against 1775 are probably much like the ones you get. Number one, the first question I always ask someone is, so tell me, have you read the bill? And the answer is no. So we start there, and I say, well, before we engage any further, I'd like you to take a look at the bill. Here's the bill. I'll usually send articles on both sides of the fence, and then I say, get back with me, and I'll be happy to discuss it with you. No one's gotten back with me yet. And there's some people who have refused to read the bill. No, I'm not going to read that. I know what it says. It says that one guy told me, oh, you couldn't even teach history anymore because of 1775. And I'm like, okay. So you're not going to read the bill. So I'm not going to spend time on that. I'll spend time with people who want to learn and want to listen and want to try to, I don't expect them to see my viewpoint, but we've got to be able to discuss it. If you just say no, we have no debate.
Exactly. So going forward, what do you think? Do you have any hopes for your service on the board? Are there things that you would like to see happen? I mean,
sure. I mean, it's pretty basic. I was trying to think of something grand, but the truth is it's pretty basic. My hope for this board is that everyone stays true to their self, that Ryan stays true to the man he was elected to be. Politics can do things to people. I don't see Ryan changing ever, but I pray that he holds true to what he's been elected to do, and he has so far. And I think that shocks some people that he's the same person that ran the campaign and is in the office. I hope the board takes this seriously and always puts in the time and the effort past this initial excitement of being appointed to continue to look at all points of view and do what's best for Oklahoma's children. I hope that we get our schools back to reading and writing and arithmetic and science and teaching the children the love of learning. I think that if teachers could understand that when they do insert their opinion, and I sure would hope it wouldn't be done on purpose, but sometimes when we insert our opinion into a young child's life, you can ostracize and alienate them from their own parents and create division in their household when they go home. So you just need to keep those opinion items to yourself. Encourage that family unit and understand that they may not even think like you, but that's not your job. Your job there is to make sure their reading is on grade level and that they know how to add and subtract. And gosh, if I could do anything about getting rid of this box math, I would love to do that, because I don't even understand this estimation of 6 to add 20 plus 30. I'd love to do that. The math is a challenge. But for me to help my kids with their homework is what I'm saying. I'm like, that is not how we did this. But
no, because Common Core ruined math. I mean, it really did.
And our teachers, if they stick, for teachers who are worried or nervous about their jobs, guys, if you teach to the Oklahoma standards, there is no fear. And Oklahoma standards include the Tulsa race riots or massacre, whatever you choose to believe. They do. They have all of that in there. They talk about Rosa Parks, and I'd sure like to hear more about her because she was a brave pioneer, and I'm sure she would just be all over this transgender nonsense. But there's lots of things to be talked about in Oklahoma that are fantastic about our state, and they're right there in that curriculum. So just go there, feel free to teach from that, do the best you can, love those kids, and I think it would be a perfect world.
My mother actually met Rosa Parks one time.
Wow.
And my mother said that Rosa Parks she said, I didn't sit on that front seat to make a statement. I was tired. which to me just makes the story that much better.
Either way, she can stand. Either way.
She's not setting
Not
up
the
to
reason.
be somebody. But anyway, and so, sometimes that part of the story doesn't ever get out. But, it was, that was, my mother's an educator as well. So she loves telling that story. But I wanted to get back just for a second. The finances, and teachers are always yelling that they don't have enough money, and of course nobody can answer the question, what is fully funded? But growing up in Texas, and my mother being she's got 3 master's degrees and a doctorate in education, so she's a pretty good resource. She taught for over 30 years, taught or was principal or superintendent for 30 years in my little town in East Texas. And she made the comment several years ago that if Oklahoma wants to be like Texas, Texas has about 1/4 the amount that they spend on administration as Oklahoma. If we cut our administration budget by 7%, those teachers would be getting paid really, really well.
And I think the administration is terrified. And I have been trying to educate teachers in that sense, because listen to this. So Deborah Gist, the superintendent of Tulsa, has a package with a total value of $484,323. The communications director, her communications director is running, sorry, I wasn't expecting to bring these up. So the executive director of communications, that's kind of what they call managers within the school system. They'll be like executive director of DEI, her base salary, or her total salary package, is $138,729. Now, Governor Stitt's communication director, governor of our state, who needs needs that position filled and filled well. I don't know why schools need communication directors. Come here, we educate you. She's $107,000. As communication director for the state, for our governor of our state.
For the governor, yeah.
Yes. So I do feel like being an accountant and streamlining businesses, those numbers do look off to me. And our teacher pay should be higher, and maybe, and we do have to give grace and acceptance to the fact that some of those federal programs, state programs, require a lot of work and a lot of understanding. They're tough to administrate. I wonder sometimes on the federal dollars, after we jump through all the hoops. I had a center tell me that for their FDA nutrition program, that some of the parents had signed in the wrong spot on the form, and they rejected reimbursing them the money for that child, those children, because the parent had just simply signed the form in the wrong spot. So we're jumping through all these hoops and time and money dancing, trying to get these federal dollars in. And I'm like, I'd really like to know at the end of the day what we're really truly left with that's going to our children by the time.
I promise it's not worth it.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, wow, I want to dig, that's me. I'll dig into the numbers and start.
Absolutely.
And I would like to know that, so we can say, okay, so the FDA gives us federal dollars, right? Well, 25 cents goes to your kid annually.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there used to be, in 2014, there was a states' rights committee with an inside the Oklahoma legislature, and the state. Oh, there is still a states' rights.
Jay is the chair.
Oh, he is. Okay.
It's Jay Stegall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember back at one point, I think it was in 2014, they did a kind of an overview of that to ask that question. Are we getting our money's worth for what we get in federal grants? And the answer was no. That by the time we had administered all of those particular programs, what we gave out, it really wasn't worth it for us to do all of that. And then don't forget, every federal program that we get entangled with has some kind of strings that go back to, whatever we're doing. Part of the reason why kids had to wear masks during the pandemic was because most schools took pandemic money from the federal government. And it said, if you're not going to make the kid wear a mask, then we're not going to give you this money. So, I mean, it's
kids.
Yeah, it's to me, and this is what Julie and I and the rest of the board at Rope have said since 2009. We don't want federal money. We don't want the state entangled with the federal government on any level. If you really honestly don't think that we could streamline or realign the money that's going to administration, and it's not just administration, Kendra, that it's not, what do they call it? It's not administration, but it's non-teacher.
I forget the word, but yes.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. It's all of those people that are like classroom helpers or teachers, this or this or that. And those people are getting hired. And, I'm sorry, I was a teacher. I had to make all my own copies. I had a 7-hour day. I mean, I didn't get an assistant. And that was what parents were for, right?
Exactly. They locked parents out and I was up at this school all the time.
Too, for the older kids. Yeah.
I worked there, and I did work there. I worked there all the time.
And that's the problem. So instead of having parents make copies, or instead of having parents do the little things, the teachers could use help, we've got a paid person now in that spot. And if we could just get rid of these positions, so much more money could come back to the teachers and could come back to the classroom. And yet we keep doubling down on these goofy things. I mean, how do we get out of that life cycle?
We need more training in those areas. Forgot to mention that I was on the school board of Lamond Charter School here in Norman. Before I was appointed, I had to resign to take this appointment. And one of the first things that happened was we were super excited. We'd gotten this grant for iPads, a technology grant, $40,000 for iPads, right? So we're so excited. We get the grant, the iPads come in, and then, oh no, our internet can't handle these iPads. $7,500 to upgrade that. So now this $40,000 grants cost us $7,500. Then we realized these don't last for long with kids. They're lost, they're broken, they're they have things that happen to them, they have to be replaced. And so then the cost of that grant went up. So we hadn't budgeted for any of that. So that exciting $40,000 grant, I think, ended up by just the end of that first year costing us $15,000 that we hadn't budgeted for. And I started thinking this was a small amount comparatively. What would you do if you'd made this decision on a $100,000 grant, and then you find out it costs you? I don't know that. I don't know. I don't want to say they aren't, but I can see times where administrators may be taking these grants and not looking forward at the cost value in 5 years or 10 years. What did that actually cost? And then it really concerned me, because I thought this could be big trouble. This could have gotten schools in a lot of trouble over the years if you did that and didn't estimate that right. And so was it a grant? Was it a blessing? I really question that.
Right.
Well, I think we've trained schools to go for money. I mean, I think that's what we've done. We've just trained schools to be. I remember when I was teaching,
they have employees that are employed full time to write, and that's what they do.
Well, but I do remember when I was a teacher, they would say, well, don't forget, you need to go to the foundation and ask for your money this year for your, in class, because I was a science teacher, and, we require a little bit more, than maybe a math teacher does, because we have, microscopes, and if you're going to do it right anyway, microscopes and, different things that you have to have. And so I really do. I mean, just from the time that I spent in the public school system in Oklahoma, I just felt like we were all trained to sell. It was like, the dogs, Pavlov's dogs, we were ding the bell to get your money, salivate and ding the bell to get your money. And that's how I really, I felt, and I felt we ended up spending so much more time chasing down those grants than just looking at our school budget to find out where we could cut something so that we could get some glassware in the chem lab,
Well, yeah, I totally get that. And I think there are some, I think we're saying that there are some that are valuable and that are great and we're thankful to our communities, but maybe we should ask for a cost analysis when we say, okay, the teacher comes in or whoever says, we're looking at this grant. Okay, so what is our cost? Can we get a good estimate of what it's going to cost us to get this grant? So now your grant, is only worth $10,000, and how much
Right.
we're going to spend chasing that $10,000. Now your grant, when you take out your time, is only worth $2,000, which is a lot of money in a school budget. I get that. I'm just using raw numbers, but
Right.
I think that we need to look at those things more, and that we need to train school administrators and encumbrance clerks to be able to identify and understand those things. We're so busy training, we train them how to report to OCAS. We've got deadlines there. And, you were talking about consequences and things. And I think one thing that makes it really tough on the accountability side for me was you want to hold a school accountable. They know the deadlines, they know what they have to do to report. And then if they don't report, we charge them, say, a fee or a penalty. But you're sitting there looking at this penalty that they knew about, and you need to charge them, but your heart goes, that's going to come out of the budget for those kids. It's not right. That penalty isn't going to do anything but come out of the budget for those kids. But if we, and you're having this circular, or I don't know about everybody, but I'm like, I need to charge it. They need accountability, but I don't want the kids to suffer. And you're just like, this hamster wheel. And that's tough. That's one of the tough times in making a decision.
That's because, when you're using somebody else's money and your goals are set by somebody else, there's very little accountability. And that's just the nature of government as a whole.
Well, yeah. Well, Kendra, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you joining us today and giving us
there.
Yes. And I just think, you're God ordained for that position. And I'm so glad that our leadership has you there. But as we get ready to go out, if you've got anything to tell parents, how they can interact with you, something that they can do, anything, just let us know.
Yes. And I wanted to read you real quick this quote that came up before my confirmation hearing yesterday that I thought, we talk about God and him putting him in this space, and he actually did, of course, gosh, and I can't find it, darn it. But, this was something that I can see the path and how God planned everything for me like he does for all of us. And there was a quote yesterday before my confirmation hearing, and I was really nervous, and it came up, and it was like, lay it before God. It was the verse of the day on the Bible app. Just lay it at God's feet. Don't be weary. Don't be tired. It's under control. And I think that was a beautiful thing as far as right before that hearing. But parents, teachers can reach us at the State Board of Education. It's our first name our last name. So Kendra.Wesson@ok.gov. I think they're working on getting everyone's email set up that way. Mine is for sure set up. And go to the State Department of Education website, and there's several ways to get involved there and make your comments, complaints, happy comments too are nice. It's always nice to hear you're doing it. There. And there is also a website, a email site there that you can, a little spot where you can sign up to get emails from the State Department of Education about what is going on, when board meetings are, and those kinds of things. So I just encourage everyone to stay involved, be a part of your child's education in their school, ask those tough questions, because no one advocates for your child better than you will.
Oh, those are great last words. And again, Kendra, thank you so much for being here with us and taking your time, because you're a full-time mother, a full-time CPA, and a full-time Oklahoma State School Board member.
Yes, it's great.